All right, so tell me if this sounds familiar. You're at the grocery store, recipe in hand, and you're trying to decide between like fresh garlics or that pre-minced stuff in the jar,
Oh, yeah.
trying to decide which one to grab.
I know exactly what you mean.
And it's like,
Huh.
huh,
Yeah.
is this worth it?
Yeah.
You know, that's what today's deep dive is all about. We found this really interesting article and it breaks down like all the pros and cons of each.
Yeah.
So we're diving deep into the fresh garlic versus jarred garlic debate.
I love it. It seems like such a simple question.
Right.
Fresh or jarred?
Totally. But it's actually pretty fascinating when you really start thinking about it.
It really is. I mean, what's so interesting to me is that this whole, like, simple choice actually kind of gets at some really important cooking principles.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, we're talking about building flavors, understanding how ingredients work together, and finding that balance between, convenience and quality.
Right, because sometimes you just don't have time to mince the garlic.
Exactly.
So it sounds like we're not just talking about saving a few minutes of chopping here.
No,
Like choosing the right garlic can actually like make or break a dish.
it really can. It's true. Just like a good chef carefully picks out like each ingredient,
Right.
the type of garlic we use can totally change the final flavor.
Okay, so before we get into like all the specifics,
Okay.
can we just talk about like what actually makes these two types of garlic different?
Yeah. So when we're talking about fresh garlic, we're talking about those individual cloves that you get from like a whole head of garlic.
Right.
And they have this compound in them called allicin. Yeah, it's released when you chop it or crush it, or even when you just bruise it a little.
Uh-huh.
And that's what gives fresh garlic its really strong smell and that pungent flavor.
And it's so good.
It is so good.
Okay, so what about that pre-minced stuff? Does it have like any allicin? Or is it just
There-
gone?
It does. It does. But because it's already been processed and it's been sitting in that jar for who knows how long, some of that allicin disappears over time.
Oh,
So it's going to be milder, less intense, maybe a little less complex, you could say.
so it's not like one is better than the other. It's more about like when to use which one.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this article does a really great job of explaining like which dishes are best for each kind of garlic.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Okay.
What are some dishes where it's like, I need to use fresh garlic?
Okay, well, think about dishes where you really want that garlicky flavor to like really come through.
Okay.
Like garlic shrimp,
Yes.
pasta aglio e olio, or even like a classic bruschetta. Fresh garlic is the way to go with those.
Okay.
Actually, the article specifically mentions aioli. You know, that garlicky mayonnaise?
Yeah.
It says you really can't get the same flavor if you use that pre-minced stuff.
Oh, wow. That's good to know.
Yeah.
So you want that fresh garlic flavor to really be like the star of the show in those dishes.
Yes, exactly.
What about dishes where I could get away with using the jarred stuff?
Well, think about dishes where the garlic is more of like a background flavor,
Okay.
like in soups or stews or
Yeah.
sauces where it kind of blends in with other flavors.
Right.
That's where that pre-minced garlic can be totally fine.
Okay, so we talked about how like chopping the garlic affects the allicin and the flavor.
Right.
But what about the texture of the garlic? Like, does that matter at all?
Oh, absolutely. The way you prepare your fresh garlic, like whether you mince it really fine or you crush it or you slice it,
Mhm.
that can totally change not just the flavor, but the texture of the whole dish.
Really?
Yeah, like the article talks about how thinly sliced garlic, when you cook it slowly in olive oil, it gets all golden brown and crispy.
Yeah.
And it develops this whole other layer of flavor because of something called the Maillard reaction.
The Maillard reaction, what is that?
It's basically a chemical reaction that happens when sugar and amino acids in food are exposed to heat. And it creates like hundreds of new flavor compounds. And that's why seared steak or crusty bread or even those perfectly browned garlic slices taste so good.
So it's like chemistry, but with food.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
And it shows how fresh garlic gives you so much more control over how those flavors develop when you're cooking.
Wow. So fresh garlic, you're really racking up the points here.
It's true.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, after hearing all that about fresh garlic,
Mhm.
I'm feeling a little suspicious of that jarred stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Like, is it even worth it?
Well, it's like we said, all that allicin, that really good stuff, it kind of fades away over time.
Oh, yeah.
So that pre-minced garlic, as easy as it is, it's just not going to have the same flavor as freshly chopped garlic,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like the flavor just kind of gets lost somewhere along the way.
Exactly.
Speaking of things getting lost,
Yeah.
you mentioned that fresh garlic is supposed to be healthier.
Right.
Is that because of the allicin too?
You got it. Allicin is like the key to all those amazing health
Okay,
benefits.
so tell me more. Like, what are the benefits? What's so great about Allison?
Well, one thing is that it can boost your immune system.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's actually some research that says eating garlic regularly could even make your colds less severe.
Huh. So, like, adding garlic to my soup could actually be helpful. It's not just for flavor.
Not at all. There are even more benefits. Some studies have even looked at how garlic can be good for your heart.
Oh, wow.
Like they think allicin might lower blood pressure and cholesterol.
Wow, garlic is like a superfood or
I see,
something.
no, right.
But let's be real, sometimes you just need something that's quick and easy in the kitchen, especially when you've had a long day and you just need to get dinner on the table.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Yeah, so that's where I feel like that jarred garlic really wins.
Yeah, and that's where I think this article does a good job of, not making us feel bad about using it. Right. It's not like pre-minced garlic is the enemy. It's just about understanding, like, when to use it.
It's all about balance, right?
Exactly.
I like that.
It's like having, Beyonce and background music on your playlist. You need both.
That's a good analogy.
Right.
But yeah, I think you're right. Sometimes we just go for the easiest option without really thinking about what we're giving up.
Yeah, and it's not just about garlic.
Really?
Think about herbs. Like, have you ever bought dried parsley?
Yeah, of course. I always have some in my pantry.
It lasts forever.
It does.
But it doesn't have that same bright, fresh flavor as when you chop up parsley right before you use it?
Yeah, it's true. It's like a totally different thing.
It is. It's like comparing, I don't know, a watercolor painting to a photocopy.
Right, exactly.
Mhm.
Okay, that's a good one.
Or think about spices. Did you know that whole spices like peppercorns or coriander seeds, they keep their flavor way longer than pre-ground spices?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, pre-ground spices, they lose their flavor over time because the oils that give them all that flavor and aroma, they just kind of disappear after they're ground.
So you're telling me my whole spice rack is basically useless.
No, not useless, but if you really want the best flavor, you got to go with whole spices and grind them yourself.
Okay, so a mortar and pestle is what? Like the next thing on my shopping list?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or a spice grinder. They work great too, and then you can just buy your spices whole.
Okay, you've convinced me.
It's a game changer, seriously.
Wow, I never realized how much flavor I was missing out on just because I wanted things to be easy.
I know, it's kind of eye-opening, right?
I gotta say, this is really making me rethink, like, my whole approach to cooking.
Really?
Yeah, like, I'm realizing that I've been choosing convenience over flavor way more often than I thought.
It's easy to do.
It is. But it's like you were saying, it's not about, like, never using the jarred garlic or the pre-ground spices.
Right.
It's about knowing when it's okay to take a shortcut and when it's worth it to put in a little extra effort.
Exactly. It's about being mindful in the kitchen.
Yeah, I like that mindful cooking.
Yeah.
It's like we started with this really basic question like fresh garlic or jarred garlic,
Right.
but we ended up talking about so much more.
We did. It's amazing how these little things can lead to such big conversations about food.
It is. So for anyone listening, what's like the one thing you hope they take away from all of this?
I think the most important thing is to just be curious in the kitchen.
Okay, yeah.
Like whether you're a professional chef or you're just starting out, there's always something new to learn.
I love that.
Yeah.
So the next time I'm at the store staring at all those spices, I'm going to try to channel my inner culinary explorer.
Yes.
And as for that garlic, well, let's just say I'm going to be reaching for the fresh stuff a lot more often.
I like the sound of that.
Maybe I'll even try out some of those fancy chopping techniques you were talking about.
You should. And hey, maybe we can have a garlic-themed cook-off sometime.
Oh, you're on. Just give me a heads up so I can perfect my roasted garlic recipe.
Okay, it's a deal.
All right, well, on that note, thanks to everyone for joining us on another delicious deep dive.
Yes, thank you.
We'll see you next time.